Welcome to Sabermetrics 101 office hours. My name is Andy Andres, and I'm the course instructor for Sabermetrics 101 on the edX platform offered by BU. Also with me is Eric Smiley. Eric is one of the course coordinators. If you look on this screen, I think it says Ethan Bine under my name. I am not Ethan Bine. He's much more handsome than I am. So don't confuse me and Ethan at all. Let me start off by saying I'm wearing my Astros hat in honor of a wonderful front office filled with great analysts who look like they've made a nice trade just in the past half an hour. Gomez and Fires for Santana and a couple other parts. I think it's a good deal for the Astros. I like it. Anyway, let's do a few things. First, talk about the updated syllabus. If you go to the course site, you can find the syllabus in a couple places. We've updated the syllabus to reflect the release of Module 4 and Module 5 and Module 6. All those dates got shifted from the start of the course. Essentially, Module 4 will be released 1 week from today at 11 a.m. Module 4 is going to include a bunch of videos on fielding, the introduction to fielding sabermetrics, introduction to pitching sabermetrics, introduction to R Studio, and introduction to the R language itself. So, again, I think it's a module filled with good information for students, and looking forward to all the great things learners can learn for Module 4. That'll be in 1 week. Second, Eric's going to give us a little tutorial here on a couple things in SQL that have popped up in the discussion forums. Eric?
Yeah, so there have been a lot of questions lately about a couple things for SQL. The first is there's been a lot of questions about the order by command. The order by command basically takes everything that you've written in your query and then tells SQL how to display the results. So you can give it one variable to order by, or more commonly, and this is where the issues usually popped up, we give it two variables to order by. So if there's a tie in the first one, it breaks the tie with the second variable. So if we order our results by the number of home runs, two players are going to have the same number of home runs. So we have to break the tie with a second variable, player ID, a distinct variable that will have no ties because no players have the same player ID. So that second order by variable is very important because if you don't have it, the ties will be broken in a different way between the BU sandbox grader and your queries. So the second order by or third order by, however many order bys are listed in the question, it's very important that you put those all in so that you get the full credit for your correct query. The second thing that's come up a lot is the group by command. It's a little more confusing, the group by command in SQL, because it's a little unclear as to what exactly it's doing. And I think the important thing to remember is that the group by command it basically tells SQL how you want your results sorted. So if you want to get the leading home run hitter for one season for one team, you need to group by team and by a year so that it knows that you're segmenting the results in that specific way. So the group by, a lot of people group by whatever variable is in the select statement, which is fine, but you can't group by a variable that you actually want to order by because that's not, it doesn't really mean anything. So just remember, when you want to group something, you have to think logically about how you want to segment the data, how you want the data displayed, and you can only group by, you can only have one non-aggregate function in the select statement if you're going to use a group by, or else it will just display. So, okay, here's an example. Sorry if this is a little unclear. A lot of we've been using a lot of aggregate functions, average, sum, max, min. And if you want to then ask for player ID in the select statement, it's not going to work because this player ID is simply going to select the first alphabetically player ID for that year. So you just have to remember that a lot of people have been getting David Ardsma. It's a very common name in this course. Sometimes Hank Aaron, because they're first alphabetically. But those are not really the answers that you want. So if you're going to use an aggregate function and you're going to group by, and you're going to use a group by command in your SQL query, you just have to remember that asking for player ID is not going to work like that. And you're going to have to go look at the answer yourself, either through baseball reference or another means, because there's no simple way through SQL to get the answer that way. So I think that, I mean, always feel free to ask Ethan and I questions in the discussion forum, but group by and order by, just be very careful with those two commands.
Thank you, Eric. Let's move on to some other questions that were pre-submitted before office hours. And one prominent one was, let me see if I can do this, advice on, see if I can do this, select. Woohoo, I think that worked. I'm not sure if users see that. Or...
I don't think they do.
Okay, well, the question we're answering is about advice on getting jobs in baseball operations departments in the major leagues. The advice. Look, a lot of people want these jobs. These are very competitive jobs. They are jobs filled with prestige. People like the idea of working for Major League Baseball teams. The questioner asked about, should I go to the winter meetings job fair? Should I go to the Sloan Analytics Conference? Should I, there's other baseball meetings. There's an August meeting, by the way, in Boston called the Sabr Seminar. Great meeting, great way to meet front office folks, baseball analysts who work for the teams. There's also the Sabr Analytics Conference in March in Phoenix, another place to meet folks. So it's not just Sloan. Sloan's fine. Sloan is more broad across all sports analytics. So they have soccer, basketball, hockey, football. They're all there. But Sabr Seminar is a baseball-only conference, August in Boston. Sabr Analytics Conference is baseball-only, March in Phoenix. Two other good places to go. But competitive for these jobs is to demonstrate that you've done some work. You've done some research. You've done some writing. So if I look at all the young people who go from college to these internships with the teams, they've all written something. They've all put their name out there. They've all suffered the criticisms that come from sticking your neck out on the internet with some research or ideas. So they've done that. Or they've done public presentations where teams are attending. And they've stuck their neck out with their work, with the work that they're doing. Now, I happen to think this course is valuable for those steps towards getting those internships. I really do. I think we're offering the material you need to master to succeed in those jobs. Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, if I ever said anything you disagree with.
No, I did not disagree with anything you said.
Okay, so here's the other key, though, and I'm gonna brag a little here. Is that okay, Eric?
That's fine.
Yeah, we've had a lot of success placing people from Tufts. This course at BU had its roots at a Tufts seminar that we've been teaching for a while now. So in this small seminar in the experimental college at Tufts, where I got to meet great course coordinators like Ethan and Eric, we have a seminar format to explore these ideas, and then we've converted that into this MOOC format for the whole world to take if they would like to. So there is something to the formula we've sort of settled on in terms of getting some work done. The students in our course actually get some research done. They have lots of opportunities to present this research to people very prominent in sabermetrics. And they get lots of criticism for their work. And they learn techniques to do this kind of work and do it well. So there's another piece here, which, there's an academic piece, which is learning material while you're in college or, anywhere you are in your life, you're a lifelong learner enough to figure out some fundamentals you need to succeed as an analyst. Data science, we're covering that. We're introducing that in Sabermetrics 101. The basics of statistics and modeling, we're introducing that in Sabermetrics 101. The foundational sabermetrics that have been done over the last, I don't know, let's call it 100 years. We're introducing that and teaching that in Sabermetrics 101. So we're getting you that first 3 or 4 steps along that journey towards getting those jobs that you might want. But you're going to have to start doing your own work. You're going to have to distinguish yourself somehow from lots of folks who want these jobs. And the skill sets are very similar to the skill sets if you know this field, it's called econometrics. A lot of people who study business or econ in college, they can do this subfield called econometrics, and it's essentially the analytics of business, the analytics of a system. And in this case, the system is baseball. But those skills and the training you get in econometrics is very similar to the skills and training we're trying to cover here in Sabermetrics 101. Hey, Eric, we okay still? We still?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Anyway, the idea is to think like an analyst, think like a scientist, ask questions, and demonstrate that you're actually doing it. Conceivably, if your name is Steinbrenner Jr., you probably might get a job doing excuse me, something popped up on my computer. Conceivably, I'm totally flummoxed now. Conceivably, if you've got the right connections, you can get some of these internships right away. But if you don't have those connections, you've got to demonstrate your skill set in all the material we're trying to introduce you to in this course. So, this is on you as a learner. I wish I could say, take Sabermetrics 101 and you'll get the job. Well, that's just not true. Take Sabermetrics 101, get exposed to these ideas, run with those ideas, do something great, embrace this attitude of the analyst, and then you're very competitive for these jobs. If that makes any sense at all, I think we're like a good first step towards this. Now, Sabermetrics 201 will be a good second step. And other ideas about advancing your work after that, we're thinking about all those things to train people the right way so they have the skill sets required so they can compete for these jobs. But if it's you and your work, get it done. Get it done. Do some work. Get some writing out there. Put your name out there and try to show how you think so that people running baseball operations departments can see how you think and go, that person could fit in our group. We'll give them the internship and see how they can run with us. That's how things happen. We have had some success though. Tough students are they're peppered sort of around Major League Baseball. We've got a good crew sort of all over. And it's been exciting to see that maybe somehow what we did at Tufts in the seminar and shepherding those students along with their ideas and making sure they wrote them up and showed the world, it's actually working pretty well. Eric, what do you think it takes to be getting internships?
So obviously I have no firsthand experience with this, but I think I have the one thing I would say, and what I've seen my friends who have gotten these jobs, especially at Tufts, have done is you have to get yourself out there. You have to do research, not only so that teams can see you did research, which is valuable in and of itself, but you have to do research to get better research skills, to become a better researcher, to find out how to analyze data better. I've done a couple research projects, and it's made me think about the game in a better way, think about analysis in a better way. It's just a very, very valuable tool to do your own baseball research. And the second thing is to write about baseball, whether that's a blog, whether it's on free Fangraphs forum. In any way, writing about baseball definitely makes you think about the game in a better way. Every time I write something about baseball, I realize first that my grammar skills are a little rusty, but second, that I definitely know more about baseball after writing it down and thinking about it in a critical way. So I think those are two very, very valuable skills if you were thinking of going into really any job, but especially baseball field.
Yes. Eric is being a little too humble here. He's a fantastic writer.
Oh, no, I just mess up who and whom and stuff like that. I'm talking. Yeah.
That's
Yeah, Shakespeare other than that, but just those couple things.
Next, let's see. I can do this. Ethan is a great technical guy, so me trying to play Ethan is just fraught with danger. Let's see how this works. So here's the next question. With the trade, there are a bunch of questions like this.
Trade deadline.
Trade deadline questions. With the trade deadline approaching, I want to go behind the scenes of a GM looking to bolster their prospective teams to make the World Series push. What do the GMs do at the trade deadline? What primary analytics are you looking at as a GM to determine what players to pursue? The same ones you always use. So there's nothing new here at the trade deadline. The models are different because when you do a trade, you're actually saying, okay, what's the value of the pieces? And the value of the pieces is, you want to make it simple, say WAR or something like that, say OPS or some metric that measures something. So I put a value on a player, and then I try to project out for the next bunch of years that I have control of that player, what that value looks like. How do I see the value now in the near future, and then for the future that I control the player? And then I can quantify that value. I can estimate it. So the modeling done by major league teams who are strong in analytics is to put a value on players. So then they can say player A is worth 5, I don't know, what's a good name for something? 5 wins.
Yep, 5 wins.
Player B is worth, and then they're going to be worth 5 wins a year for the next 6 years because they're a rookie. I have 6 years of control, so I have 30 wins coming with this player A. Player B, I only have 2 years of control. It's a 4-win player, so that I get 8 wins from that player. The other player I'm going to acquire is a 1-year player, rental, half a year, but it's going to get me 2 wins because it's just a rental. So I'm just adding up all my wins on the trade that I'm receiving, and then I'm adding up what I'm giving away. Okay, so I'm giving away, if I acquire 40 wins, if I'm a good trader, I want to give away 30 wins to get my 40 wins back. So that's how the GM is thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the other monkey wrench in this system is the salary of the players. So a guy, classically, who was traded with a big salary just recently?
Cole Hamels.
Who?
Cole Hamels.
Hamels. Well, no, Hamels has lots of value because he's stretched out.
Okay, Prince Fielder a couple of years ago.
Yeah, but who was traded it was Adrian Gonzalez was a salary dump.
Okay, so yeah.
Remember that one with the Red Sox to the Dodgers? The Dodgers did
Matt Kemp last winter.
Yeah, but right now at the trade deadline, LA picked up 2 salaries.
Yeah.
They picked up Wood and Latos. They decided, okay, we'll pay the rest of the salaries for these guys. We don't mind taking on the salary because their economics allows it. Other teams may not take on salary as readily as the Dodgers did with Latos and Wood. So that's another component to what they're thinking. They're thinking, can I take this salary on? Can I take this now? How does that project out of my salary, my budgets, my ability to pay for the whole team in 2016, 2017, 2018? So that's what they're thinking. They're modeling their costs. They're modeling the value they're getting, how many wins they're getting, and then the costs that they're letting go and the value they're letting go. So it's really a comparison between what you let go and what you get back. Now, it's pretty obvious. If a guy's an established major leaguer, you're pretty good about what his value is. You're on target with the value number. You know the salary number. You're on target with the value number for a major leaguer. But there's huge error bars in the projections of minor leaguers. Huge error bars. Jorge Alfaro just went from the Rangers to the Phillies. Looks like a decent catcher. He's got pop in his bat. And so he's got value. He really does, especially because the Phillies don't have who's a great catcher now who's not moving out of their position. The Phillies don't have Blake Swihart for the Red Sox. Blake Swihart's probably pretty damn legit. Yasmani Grandal for the Dodgers is pretty damn legit. He's not, the Dodgers, when someone says, hey, is Grandal available? The Dodgers are going, nope, we like him. Yeah. So they like him because he's young and good and fairly controllable in terms of salaries and contracts. So Alfaro is young and good, but his error bar is pretty damn big in projecting out his future. You're really not sure. The error bar for Cole Hamels is a lot smaller. The big thing there is always the injury risk. Now, who was an injury risk that was traded? Scott Kazmir was traded for not much. I forgot what the A's got. I don't want to say a bucket of balls, but they
got some mid-tier prospects, 2 mid-tier prospects.
So it wasn't a bucket of balls, but they took on Kazmir's contract. The A's saved some money. The A's win that a little bit there, just financially. But Kazmir is an injury risk. Kazmir's arm could fall off tomorrow. Maybe not tomorrow. Maybe the next time he pitches.
Knock on wood.
That's awful. Eric, you're a bad man.
Yeah, I don't.
No. But the point is, the injury risk associated with Kazmir is pretty high, and the injury risk with other players is pretty low. So injuries happen, but the point is, we know the projections of major league players pretty well. The projections of minor leaguers is huge, a big error bar. So this is the error bars with the players and their projections are all part of their analytics. Playing out the years under control are all part of the analytics. Where you are on the win curve, which is a Sabermetrics 201 concept. I don't know if we're going to have space or time to do win curves.
I think 201. That'll fit in 201.
I think it's a 201 topic, but looking at the win curve for a team, where you are on the win curve is part of your calculus too. Are you looking to, get a couple more wins this year to make the playoffs? That sweet spots, and knowing where you are on the win curve is very important. The example close to home is the Red Sox are not having the season they wanted, and they're not likely to be really in the game of acquiring high-priced talent here at the trade deadline. They're a lot more like, the 3 more wins that Cole Hamels may bring us aren't going to make a difference to our season. So they're like, whatever. Maybe it's not the time to go for that trade. So all these things are part of it, but it's nothing really super duper tricky. It's value, it's cost, it's future return, right? So, I mean, it could be like you on this win curve, you could see future returns. So it's fundamentally sort of basic econometrics. Eric, what do you say?
I'll give 60 seconds on the trade deadline here. I think that everything you said definitely goes into the trade deadline. I think the amount of money a player is being paid definitely factors in. The amount of years of control is a very important factor. I don't think fans of the game that aren't experienced, don't have a lot of knowledge, in-depth knowledge of the game, don't take into account how much years of control are important. If you can control a player for 4 years, that's so much more valuable than getting a player like David Price, even though he's great, who's only available for a couple months. Oh, hey, Ethan.
Oh, he's here.
Ethan.
The real Ethan.
Ethan appears out of nowhere.
Ethan.
There's the good-looking Ethan, and then the Ethan in the red shirt who is not so good-looking. But he's really not named Ethan either. So, welcome, Ethan. I'm glad you're here.
Me too. All right. So where are we?
We answered the trade deadline question and tried to give an understanding, quick understanding of what a GM might be thinking at the trade deadline.
Yeah, so if I'll just finish. So I think years of control is a very, very, very important factor that people don't think about enough. That controlling a player, especially in cheap years, at the beginning of their career where you can pay them very little, is very, very important. I think future projections and the outlook of your team. So a team that's, as Andy was just saying about the win curve, a team that is going to win 65 games this year and is not going to make the playoffs, a couple of wins to them does not have a lot of marginal value. Cole Hamels on the Phillies this year might turn them from a 60-win team to a 63-win team, but there's no functional difference between those. Neither is making the playoffs, and there's no huge difference. Whereas another team, like the Blue Jays, who just acquired David Price, the difference between them winning 85 or 88 and potentially making the playoffs, making a playoff run, even making a World Series run, David Price can make a huge difference on that team that he simply cannot make on the team that he was just on, the Tigers. So trading players from bad teams to good teams makes sense, but I think that the win curve is an especially good way to look at that. To think that you need those couple wins so much more than the other team, and you're willing to give up prospects for it. I mean, the trade deadline it's a fun time because you see the good teams loading up, as the Astros just did in the past hour, and you see the.
Oh, is there a trade? What happened?
Oh, Gomez and Fires to the Astros.
Oh, awesome.
I love telling people about trades. It's so much fun. I should have just made one up. I should have just made one up. I should have said the Blue Jays just traded Tulowitzki and Price to the Astros, but that would have been fun. So yeah, that's all I have on the trade deadline. I think that the good analytical teams, the teams with great front offices, have a model. They really have an idea what they're going for, and they stick to it. They don't make trades that don't make sense to them. I think obviously Billy Beane is a great example of this. His trades don't make sense to every fan all the time, but he knows what he's doing, and he's thinking about future value and payroll and everything. And then there are other teams that I'm not going to name that I suspect have much less of a model and are making it up and are making their decisions on non-analytically sound basis. And I think that there's a big difference between those two teams, and you see it play out in the amount of wins that they get and how successful the franchises will be.
It's very smart of you not to put on your opinion of a team that might be hiring you soon, Eric. So
that's true. Yeah. All 30 teams have great front offices.
There you go. That's what you say when you're
yeah, all equally good. No difference.
So next one popping up, a couple here. Vince Rocco is reminding us of a very good book to understand some of the questions we just talked about, the win curve, and thinking about value and cost and return. It's called Diamond Dollars by Vince Gennaro, who's the president of Sabr. Recommend this book. If you're into econometrics and you want a little bit more about the business value, budgeting parts to baseball, I would definitely pick up Diamond Dollars. Did you guys like Diamond Dollars, Eric, Ethan?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great book.
There you go.
Vince
So
nice
we
guy,
recommend
too.
Diamond Dollars. Speaking of recommending books, let me do a real. Can I take a segue, guys?
Your class,
Of course,
Andy.
in
Your
front of me
class.
here. Let's see if this works. Baseball Between the Numbers. This is a great Sabermetrics 101 book. Those of you who like this old technology of opening a book and holding it in your hands and flipping pages, this old school technology, some people, with old gray hair people like me, appreciate. So I have lots of great books, and this is one of the best Sabermetrics 101 books out there. We'll do one more real quickly as I reach over my desk. This is actually pretty basic, but for those at the front end of this is actually a pretty good book. It's called Beyond Batting Average, and it's by Lee Panas, and it's a nice little intro to sabermetrics. It's sort of like a real, start to the whole process. Of course, not just because it's in front of me and I love this book, and I love these two men. This is The Hidden Game of Baseball by Thorne and Palmer. This is a classic book, and these are wonderful thinkers and great writers. I appreciate every moment I get with John Thorne and Pete Palmer. Wonderful people, and they've done such important work over the years. And you hear us talk about Pete Palmer a lot in the history track, and John Thorne. So their contributions are many and varied and wonderful. Well, that was my little book rant. Next question. It's just a salary cap question. How do I get select? Here's the question. How do you think the game and the sabermetric approach it has recently taken would be impacted if a salary cap were placed into effect? It would change a few things in terms of, I think what mostly would change is the teams that willy-nilly take on contracts because they can afford to. The Cubs, Dodgers, Yankees, Red Sox, Mets, who am I forgetting? Big money teams.
That's the big ones right there.
I don't know about the Mets anymore, but yeah.
Oh, they make bank. Come on.
Yeah, but they don't take on contracts.
They don't spend bank.
That's true, but they make bank. I think they do pretty well.
Yeah.
But the point is, these teams, because they have bigger Cardinals. Didn't the Cardinals just sign $1 billion team contract? $1 billion. Okay, that's a lot of Albert Pujols. Anyway, the money that those high spending teams spend on players there'd probably be a trickle down effect. If there's a salary cap, there'd probably be some effect on these long, these really long and high money contracts. I don't really know. Ethan, Eric, what do you think would happen if they implemented?
I think it would be a small. I don't think it would be a drastic change. I think teams are already thinking smartly about how much money they're paying. I think it would hurt. It would obviously hurt teams like the Yankees, like the Dodgers. The Yankees are great, and the Dodgers are great, but they're partly great because they're spending twice as much as everybody else. And if they had to pay the same amount as everybody else, they would be less great. So it would definitely hurt the big market teams. It would definitely hurt the players on just a human level. They'd be paid less. Mm-hmm. But I think it would definitely have a change on the game. But I think that baseball, no matter how much it changes, it stays the same most of the time.
I would say that it depends a lot on what the cap is. Like, for example, if they put the cap like today at like a hard cap at like $200 million, I think probably only the Dodgers and the Yankees are running $200 million payrolls these days.
Yeah.
It really wouldn't change much. Those teams would be hurt, and those teams would just have to find other ways to put their team together. But it would more just hurt just those teams, and I guess it wouldn't surprise me that much if they did it. They already have the luxury tax, which is a soft cap. But if they put a cap at 100 million, which is or 50 million or something crazy like that, like below the lowest team's payroll, whatever that might be, so that like, every team would have to cut payroll, every team would have to go under that cap, and basically every team would spend up to the cap. I think that would change it a lot, because if you put it so low that every team has the same payroll, if you put it at 40 million, every team's going to spend 40 million. They're all going to spend up to the cap, and then every team's on equal footing as far as payroll goes. I don't think it's a good idea, mostly because I think the players, the play would hurt the players a lot, and they're the ones earning the money. But I think it would be interesting because you'd have just no advantage as far as, and maybe you'd have some leaks in terms of the draft and other ways that teams could spend money But in a big way, which is payroll, teams would be on an equal footing. I think it'd be interesting.
I mean, it would be an interesting exercise, but I have a feeling it's going to be a real long time before that happens.
Yeah, baseball is flooded with money.
The
Players union is not
likelihood
gonna
of a
get that.
salary cap is very small in my view.
Yep.
I agree.
I think the owners are making bank. All 30 owners are making bank. I think the players are happy to take these big salaries. The game is in a good place. If there was a real economic shift and the game was in trouble, you'd see a lot of changes that happen.
I think the biggest myth is that in these other sports that the salary cap is actually designed for parity. I think it's designed so that the owners save money, and baseball right now doesn't need that, so it doesn't have it. And I think that's good for the game in general.
That's right. That's right. If a baseball owner is not making money in this climate,
He's doing something wrong.
they're playing with numbers. If they're trying to tell you like, oh, I'm losing money, they're shuffling a bunch of money into an account in the Cayman Islands for their grandkids or something.
Reckless accusation. Right?
Sorry?
A reckless accusation by you.
Oh!
Not naming
Reckless.
teams, I see.
See, I can be reckless because no team's going to ever hire me. Look at this face. They're never going to hire me.
I'm just going to quickly answer. There's been a couple of questions about, actually more than a couple, about StatCast. So obviously everybody loves StatCast. It's very cool. A lot of people want to do stuff with StatCast data. Almost all of it is not available to the public yet. If you do want StatCast data, go to baseballsavant.com. Ethan, actually, maybe you should talk about this more, but also I see a lot of, you can talk about that in a second, I see a lot of people asking about StatCast and about when will it be reliable, when will you have enough big data sizes. I think that all of that, you really need to know what you're going for. StatCast is going to be so much data. It's going to be an absolutely insane amount of data, and I don't think that anybody, even the teams yet, has any idea what to do with it. I think it's going to be very interesting what comes out of it, but I think that for now, teams are still trying to figure out what exactly to do with the 7 terabytes a game or 8 terabytes. I forget how many terabytes a game of data they're collecting, but it's going to be a lot of new data. 7 terabytes a game of data, which is literally unimaginable how much data that is. So it's going to, I think it's going to be very interesting what happens with that. But Ethan, you should tell people where they should go.
Yeah, so if you want to look at the StatCast data, baseballsavant.com is, I believe, the only place to see it all in one place right now. If you're watching a game, you might notice if you're on the MLB at Bat app, in the feed section, you might see some data from there. But Baseball Savant has exit velocity data and some other StatCast data, but that's the main thing. So there's 2 ways to look at it. If you go to Baseball Savant, if you go to under Applications, Batted Ball Leaderboard, that's how you can see average exit velocity, max exit velocity, so you can see just a straight leaderboard. If you want to get the data yourself and do something with it, you can go to the PitchFX search. You're going to want to change the player type to batter, so you're searching for batters. There's all sorts of controls you can do there in terms of filters and stuff. And then you can just say search PitchFX, and then what's going to happen is you're going to get some results down at the bottom. I should have pitched more so filters because it's taking a while. But then there's basically an option in the upper right-hand corner that says export. It's something like export all pitches or export all data, something like that. And it gets you just a CSV file, just like the ones from the Layman database. And it gets you every pitch, and it gets you StatCast data for every pitch and for every at bat of the season. The StatCast data, it's not perfect. It's not available in every at bat. Eric and I are doing some work with it right now, actually. It's there in about 70% of at bats or something, and some of it's just wrong. I mean, I know we've seen things.
Not perfect yet, but it's there. Like
Derek Jeter hit a. This is another data set where Derek Jeter hit a home run as a Cardinal, but so there are some data errors in these things, but for the most part, it's pretty cool, and there's a lot of stuff you can do with it. You should go check it out.
Ethan, is it about 70% really? I mean, that's a pretty high number. I would have said it's less than that.
Yeah, from what's been released so far before the All-Star break, about 70% of batted balls had StatCast data related to it. That doesn't mean it was all good StatCast data. I mean, I saw some 600-foot home runs, which is just wrong. But for the most part, it looks good.
So they include batted ball distance, where it was fielded or
Yeah.
over the fence. They include batted ball velocity. Anything else in that data set?
Yeah, that's all that's released to the public, unfortunately.
Well, that's all
Batted
that
ball.
Aaron has too at Savant, right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
all. That's all there is right now. I mean, they have other data that's being collected by Statcast. For
Right.
example, like the angle of batted ball, that's available, but only on home runs. I don't know why they chose to release it only for home runs. It's very annoying if you're trying to do research with it. Um, but it is what it is. Maybe that'll get released more in the future. Maybe they just want to hide that one. I don't know. But I would expect that in the future we're going to get some more data. I would expect next year, 2 years from now, especially more of this fielding data, route efficiency, and more of those kind of things. I think we'll get more of those released to the public.
Very good. Statcast is very cool. Baseball Savant's doing a nice job getting what we can get our hands on so far. But I'm glad to hear it's 70%. I would have said I would have taken the under, and I would have lost the bet. Next question is based on our discussion earlier. Someone asks about this idea of the value of the rental. Do the organizations? The thing is, why would you trade for a rental? I think that's what the question sort of is summarized as. Well, the trade for the rental is the value coming in from that rental. There is value. If I have a need for improved pitching, then my 5-win pitcher, my 4-win pitcher that I'm trading for has got value. Cueto and Hamels and Price will help the teams they went to. They will improve their pitching ability on that team, the pitching results on that team, so they'll potentially get a couple more wins just in the next couple months. That can be extremely valuable for teams on the right part of the win curve. It's not going to help the Phillies. It's not going to help the Red Sox. It's going to help the teams that are close. So, who got the players? Royals, Royals, Blue Jays, and
Astros.
no, Rangers.
Rangers
got Hamels, but Hamels is a special case because he's
not a rental.
He's not a rental. So, but the Royals went for Cueto, and the Blue Jays went for Price. If the Blue Jays really have modeled it, and they say, 2-3 more wins with Tulo and 2-3 more wins with Price, then they get to the right number. It's worth it. Even if they can't retain these players, it's worth it for this year. Mm-hmm. Because you get big cash when you go to the playoffs. You have a playoff game, you're writing a check to yourself.
Especially when the Blue Jays haven't made the playoffs in 20 years. They see an opportunity to go.
Right.
They're going to go for it.
Yeah, I mean, they might have talked about this earlier. I wasn't here. But what you're really going for when you're a buyer at the trade deadline is you're really looking at your playoff odds or your World Series odds, depending on your team. Like for the Royals, for example, I mean, even before the trade deadline, they had such a lead in the division that they were, almost a lock to win the division already. But they necessarily didn't have the strongest team, or at least some of these projection systems didn't think their team was especially strong, especially the rotation. I think most people would agree was not a very good rotation. But then, they added in 2 days, they added Ben Zobrist, and Johnny Cueto. And then I know Fangraphs was, they do projections and they do playoff odds and World Series odds. Their World Series odd doubled. They went from like 6% to 12%. And 12% is very good for, one team out of 30 to have 12% World Series odds. That's really good. And that's even just that 6%. 6% is such a small probability. But that's 6% extra. I mean, I don't know what the monetary payout of a World Series win is, but it's got to be, it's got to be a whole lot of money that comes in extra TV ratings and extra attendance. So they even if just that 6% chance of getting that windfall from the business point of view of, winning the World Series, and energizing your fan base for 5 years or whatever, however long it lasts. That's worth giving up a few prospects and giving up some future value. If you have a good team right now, if you're the Royals and you have Alex Gordon, who's not going to be around in the next year, and you don't know if you're going to be good in future years.
I thought I could find easily a reference to some of the things Ethan was saying, but it's taking too long. Sorry. Next question is, what do you think about what do you think about baseball in another country? Like Mexico, I think you're referring to the Mexican leagues, the Japanese leagues, in other sports cultures. Well, there are a lot of professional baseball leagues all over the world. They're in Asia, they're in South America, the Caribbean, the Latin America. So one of the things Major League Baseball teams do is really try to understand the translation of these kinds of statistics and analytics you can get from these other leagues and how they translate to the major leagues. You want to get a good sense of signing somebody for the Korean League, the Japanese leagues, to see their value. So that's a big part of the sabermetrics is to try to do the right translations and understand what's valuable. So there's a guy, I think the guy was just traded. He was the Dodger, the Cuban, but he'd been played in Cuba for a long time. He's 30 years old now. There's data of him playing in Cuba. What does that look like as a 30-year-old Major League Baseball player? Well, I think Atlanta traded for the guy, and they must like him. Or did Miami get him? I think Atlanta got him.
You're right. It was Hector Oliveira.
Hector Oliveira. So they must have a model where they say, oh, this guy's going to play for us. And that's why they saw some value there. So that's where I think the sabermetrics is. Look, there's no secret sauce to scientific, careful observations of systems to try to understand things better. That's not like a North American thing. That's a worldwide thing. Smart people observe carefully and ask questions and try to understand things better. In baseball, it's obviously important to do some good analytics, ask some good questions to try to get answers so that you can improve your chance of winning in this game. There's a financial windfall, but there's also the flags fly forever kind of thing too. So we're all Astros fans now, I think. That's what I'm going to say here.
Did you guys talk about this Scott Kazmir question at all?
We didn't go super specific into the trades now. What is
it?
All
right, well, I'll pull this one up. It's a little bit about Scott Kazmir, but I think it's more applicable. Just asking about how does the acquisition of Scott Kazmir affect the Astros? With Minute Maid being a hitter's park, does that minimize any significant impact on the team? So I'll say two things. One is that my gut said, is Minute Maid that much of a hitter's park? And so I looked it up, and at least Fangraphs they do park factors over a 5-year period. So their estimate is that Astros, it's actually completely neutral. It might be a little bit here or there. It could change. Maybe it was in the past. I'm not too familiar with the park, but maybe it's not as much as it has a reputation of. And two being, even if, let's just say it is a hitter's park, a good pitcher is going to help you in any park. So let's say you're comparing Scott Kazmir to whoever his replacement is. I don't know the Astros rotation well enough to know who he's replacing. But let's say whoever he's replacing is an average pitcher. An average pitcher, let's say, is going to have like a 3.8 ERA in a neutral park. You put him in a hitter's park, then they have a 4 ERA. So you compare it to Scott Kazmir, who maybe has a 3 ERA in a neutral park. Put him in a hitter's park, he has a 3.2 ERA. And that's not exactly how it works, but more or less. Either way, Scott Kazmir is going to give you a big bump up. Even in a hitter's park, having great pitchers is still going to help you. The Rockies would still love to have great pitchers, even if those pitchers, raw numbers aren't going to look very good.
Right.
The Rockies would love to have Clayton Kershaw, and Clayton Kershaw would help them just as much as he would help any other team.
I looked up you can get park factors by splits. You can look up park factors by runs, different parks in their run. Minute Maid is neutral for runs, very close to neutral.
It probably favors righties because of the Crawford boxes.
The right-handed home run rate is 12%.
Yeah.
Higher than normal. So also left-handed home runs. So home runs are a little higher.
It's probably why the Astros went and got a bunch of home run hitters.
Sorry?
That's probably why the Astros went and got a bunch of home run hitters.
And strikeouts are a little bit higher, 5% higher than normal, but runs are neutral.
Okay.
You can look at splits by righty-lefty, batting average, home runs. Highest run effect, it's a 3-year ballpark factor, still Coors Field. Boom, it's crazy.
It is crazy.
Still crazy. So there's a great advantage in the Coors Field still for run scoring. The worst looks like it's Petco Park still.
Wow, yeah.
Well, the changes happened this year. This might change over time, slowly but surely. But that's on run. That's on run scoring.
If I can just add something on, not even just related to what Ethan said. So about how it's not really even that related, but it's kind of along the same lines. So how an average pitcher putting up average stats in a hitter's ballpark is still valuable. So I want to say something about the Tulowitzki trade, as we're talking about the trade deadline, and everybody's very excited, especially about the Blue Jays. And as a Yankees fan, I'm a little scared of the Blue Jays. But so I've seen a lot of people writing articles or writing comments mostly on Fangraphs and Baseball Prospectus saying, why would the Blue Jays go and get a hitter? They already have the best offense in baseball. Why go get a hitter? And at first it seems logical. It's like, why wouldn't you get a pitcher if you already have the best offense in baseball? But I think that what people are missing is that adding value to your offense is just as valuable as adding value to your defense or the pitching side. Where the value comes from, these teams care very, very little about. If Tulowitzki makes you a better team, he makes you a better team. Just because you have a good offense doesn't mean you don't want a better offense. Just because you have the best offense doesn't mean you want an even better offense. I think that people are missing the fact that adding a great hitter to your lineup, even if you already have the best lineup, is just as good as adding a great pitcher to your rotation. And even more so, there was an article that I read today about how adding a great hitter to a great lineup can actually have an even bigger effect than you would have in a bad lineup because rallies last longer. You can't pitch around him. So adding Tulowitzki to the already ridiculous Blue Jays lineup could actually be better than adding an elite pitcher, which they've also gone and done. But I think that it's an interesting point to think about, that duplicity in your skill set, having great hitters, and adding another one is just as valuable as adding a great pitcher, even if your pitching is pretty bad, as the Blue Jays are. I think that where your runs come from, where your skills are, it doesn't really matter. You just want great ball players all around the field. And I think that having a superior offense and mediocre pitching, that's fine. If your runs scored is much higher than your runs against, you're going to be a great team. I think it's just an interesting thing to think about. A lot of people think the Blue Jays should have gone and got a pitcher, and it ends up they did. But I think getting a great hitter is just as good, if not better.
Right. That trade was so good for the Blue Jays getting Tulo. Now, of course, there's an injury risk, but
they got rid of an injury risk too.
Right. But I also think there's an effect of just Tulo moving somewhere. I have a feeling this is going to be good for the Blue Jays. I think they're going to really enjoy this. So, next question.
Can I just ask, did you guys talk about linear regression before I got here?
We did not. Believe me, I totally was going to wait for you for that one.
All right. Well, now that we have 4 minutes left, I'm going to talk about linear regression a little bit because we've had a lot of questions about it, and a lot of people wanted to talk about it a little bit. So, in the course, if you've gotten to that part yet, or if not, you'll get there soon. I believe this is in Module 3 on bivariate statistics. So there were some questions about some scatter plots and whether linear regression was appropriate for those scatter plots. And people were a little confused about some of those. And just generally, when you're looking at a scatter plot or you're looking at your data, when can you use linear regression? When can you not use linear regression? How do you know? So I think it's important to step back a little bit. We didn't really get into, for good reason, the nitty-gritty details of what a linear regression is, because it can get a little complicated, and you don't really have to know all the nitty-gritty details to, get a line of best fit. That's the most important thing. But for questions like this, it sometimes is valuable to learn a little bit about what you're basically assuming. So when you're doing a linear regression, you're basically assuming that you're taking your data, you're taking a sample from your data, and whatever the data you're taking your sample from, whatever your y variable is a linear function of x, and then whatever the noise is around that, it's a normal distribution. So it's you're gonna have just as many points that are gonna be above the line as below the line, and they're gonna be about equally distributed on both sides of the line. So that's an assumption you're making when you do a linear regression. Now there's other assumptions you can make, but that's the basic one that you're doing. So when you see, for example, this is one of the plots from Anscombe's quartet, and it was one of the ones on the question, where you see it just looks like a straight line. It's a perfect linear point, and then there's one outlier that's way up, and it's just completely out of the line. And people say, well, it looks very linear. Well, here's the problem is that when you do your line of best fit, you have here's what the actual line is, then you have this one point here. The line of best fit is going to come in the middle. This one outlier, because it's really so far over on the x side, it's got a lot of leverage, you call it, so it's way up above on the x-axis. So it pulls the line of best fit way up to it, and then you end up with a whole bunch of points below the line, and you have this 1 point above the line. So the problem with that is that it's going to break that assumption where the data is going to be distributed on both sides of the line. So you really want to see a nice distribution of some that are up too high, some that are too low. It's not going to be perfect for every plot, and sometimes that's okay if it doesn't look exactly right. But when it's way off like that, it's definitely not going to be a candidate for linear regression. What you should do if you see an outlier like that is investigate it, because you want to know where it came from. There's a great chance it's a data error. If it's a 700-foot home run in your StatCast data, it's fair to say that wasn't real, that StatCast just gave you an error, and then feel free to remove it. If you're doing some sort of analysis, you definitely want to mention that you removed it to be forthcoming with that. If I can't think of a good example for this, but if for some reason you think that it's not an error, but that one is just different enough that in however it was generated, and it was from, you're looking at baseball years, and that was from the strike year, so it didn't have the right number of games, so it doesn't really apply with the rest of them, then you can feel free to remove it. But if you don't have a good reason like that, you think really hard and you think, well, I can't think of a good reason why this should be any different. It looks like just all the other ones except it's way off. It could be that is just a valid point of your data, and your data just don't have the shape that you want it to. And sometimes you can't use linear regression. It's a great tool. It's a great starting point. For a lot of data sets, it's perfect, because a lot of things are linear in the world. Even if they're not linear, they're close enough for it's a good approximation. But for some things, they're going to be weirdly shaped, they're going to be weirdly distributed, and that's okay. But linear regression might not be the tool for you. Maybe you want to break up your data set, look at it in different chunks. There's other things you can do with it, but you shouldn't be too eager to try and push a linear regression onto a data set that it doesn't make sense for.
My one additional comment there is you shouldn't have just a good reason to eliminate a data point. You have to have a most excellent, awesome, kick-ass, no one would ever argue with you reason to get rid of data. Like, so obvious that people all over your field would go, oh, yeah, that makes sense. It's got to be that level. It's got to be a great frickin' reason to get rid of data.
And one thing that you can always do, if you think, well, this is a good reason, but maybe it's not, a perfect reason, is just report to results. Report, here's the regression results with the data point in. I took it out. Here's my reason why. If you want to look at that instead, here's what it says. And then people can, they can decide whether they like your reason. They can look at the data, your results with or without it.
That's right. Getting rid of data is fraught with danger. Don't do this cavalierly. There were a couple implications in some of the questions, like, oh, just throw out the data. No, don't do it. That's just my take on it. Your mileage may vary, but data is data. Okay, it's data. And the Anscombe quartet is really cool too. You should think about that, because it speaks to the value of linear regression and the value of data in general. I mean, the curious thing in that group is they're the same mean and standard deviation, all that, and the correlation's all the same too. So very interesting data set to think about. Data can be different. You got to see data, look at data, see the scatter plot, and go, what does that mean to me? And not just run regressions and go from there. Looking at data is a very important step. Very, very important step.
And we'll be covering that a lot in R next week. You guys will have some more tools to look at the data yourself.
Look at data. So let's try to take a few more questions. You guys mind if we go a little bit?
We can go a little over. That's fine.
Yeah. Question here on linear weights, and I'm going to give this to my favorite linear weights guy. Eric, do you see that question?
How does it start?
I'll read it. The system of linear weights is dependent on different plays' impact on run expectancy. But this is dependent on factors other than the batter. So how can the system determine player value? For example, with nobody on, hit by pitch is greater than first, greater than a single.
Is it?
It's
greater than a walk, maybe.
I think he meant walk. But is it? It's the same as a walk.
Okay, so I think I get what this question is asking about.
A
couple people have been asking about this in the discussion forum. Ethan, I think we know where this question.
I think so.
In WOBA, in the formula for WOBA, which is the most commonly used linear weight system, a hit by pitch has a bigger multiplier than a walk. And people are, I think naturally, a little confused by this. Why is a hit by pitch better than a walk? It's exactly the same thing in every situation. And the reason behind it is that hit by pitches generally happen in innings where more runs are scored because the pitcher hits a batter and that kind of indicates that he's wild, which means that he's not pitching well, which leads to more runs. But people don't like that a batter is getting more credit for being hit by a pitch. And that's kind of understandable, but that's just maybe Ethan has a better answer for me. I kind of struggle.
Well, it's definitely, I would say part of it is definitely that it's an indication that the pitcher is wild. I would say as far as that goes, the batter shouldn't get more credit for getting hit by a pitch because that's indicating that the pitcher is going to be more wild in the future, and that's already going to be accounted for in future walks. So maybe that's the flaw, although I don't think it's... I think the biggest reason that the hit by pitch ends up being bigger than the walk...
Oh, it's because it's random. Yeah.
Yeah, so hit by pitch is completely random. There's, except for, occasionally when a guy beans a guy, but even that is, not usually too dependent on game state. A walk, on the other hand, we might think of a walk as something the pitcher doesn't mean to do, but there's always degrees. I mean, the pitcher never wants to walk a guy. That's never the best outcome. But there's...
When Barry Bonds is up, it is the best outcome.
Maybe. But when you have guys, when there's a game situation where you really don't want to give up a hit and giving up a walk wouldn't be as bad, you're not going to walk them on purpose, but you're going to throw breaking balls out of the strike zone for sure. And that means when you have that walk, it's going to hurt you less.
Right.
So relatively, compared to all the other events, compared to single, double, triple, walks are going to hurt you less. That's when you're going to give up more walks. You're going to give up more walks in the situations as a pitcher where they're least harmful for you. Hit by pitch, on the other hand, if it's bases loaded, I would guess that bases loaded hit by pitches happen at the same frequency
as anything
relatively
else, right.
as bases empty hit by pitches. Walks, on the other hand,
bases loaded walks go down a lot.
Yeah, bases loaded walks are going to be way less than bases empty walks because you really don't want to walk a guy with the bases loaded. But hit by pitch, you're never trying to do it, pretty much.
Right. So in summary, hit by pitches and walks have the same outcome, but they do not happen in the same situations due to mostly the fact that walks are much more preventable on the side of the pitcher. And even though they have the same outcome, even though they provide the same value to a team, they happen in different situations, which leads to different run values, thus leading to different linear weights. They're not very different. It's not like batters are making their living and making their WOBA high based on hit by pitches. It's very slight difference, but that's where the difference comes from.
One quick question. There was a question about me on one of these videos. I talked about being a Mets fan, and I grew up a Mets fan, no doubt about it. But the question spins off to Ed Kranepool, who was, a nice player. I loved Ed Kranepool, but I don't think he's one of the greatest Mets of all time. He's one of the more interesting Mets because he started playing when he was 17 years old. That makes him, and he's from New York City, so that makes him an interesting character right away. But he wasn't. He really didn't end up having a great career. The kind of career that sniffs the Hall of Fame or anything like that. So that's my Ed Kranepool comment. Ethan, Eric, another question you want to answer?
Can we talk about Chris Sale? Someone asked about this in the discussion forum.
Oh yeah, what
kind of package could Chris Sale command if he were to be made available by the White Sox? I think it's just be kind of fun. I mean, we don't have anything formal or anything, but like for example, let's say the Red Sox were trying to trade for Chris Sale. That's a system I know very well. I mean, Chris Sale, not only is he probably, I'm not sure there's two pitchers I would take over him in all of baseball. Kershaw, I'm not sure there's anybody else I'd rather have.
Scherzer?
Maybe Scherzer. There's other guys who you could argue, but I think Sale's right up there with everybody except Kershaw for sure. And not only that, but he has an insanely small contract. Maybe I can look it up, unless anyone knows off the top of their head. I can look it up.
I think that the combination of being paid not a lot of money, having a lot of team control, and being one of the 2 or 3 best pitchers in baseball, the offer for Chris Sale would have to be pretty crazy. And
okay, so
it would be cool if he got traded.
Okay, so in the future years, he basically has 4 more years on his contract after this year.
For like $50 million.
Yeah, about $50 million over 4 years, and 2 of those are team options. So if he gets hurt, you don't have to pay him. It's just it's not as team friendly as it was, 2 years ago when he had really cheap years. But those are some very, very cheap. I mean, $50 million sounds like a lot of money, and it wasn't that long ago that mid-tier pitchers got $50 million. It's not nothing, but I mean, Chris Sale, if he was a free agent today, would get $300 million, I would guess, or pretty close to it.
He would get $200 million. He would get 200. He would get at least the contract Scherzer got.
He's 26, and Scherzer was 30, and Chris Sale's better than Max Scherzer, at least for this year.
Where's this? Where's the 2015 trade value article? Not finding it, unfortunately.
Oh, on Fangraphs?
Yeah, what rank was he?
He doesn't like pitchers.
Harper and Trout greater than signed Sale, period. Okay?
Oh, of course, but that's another question.
Well, no, but that's the comparison for $300 million?
Trout would get $500 million.
No, that's not true.
Trout would get $500 million if he was a free agent.
Trout would easily get $5. Okay, we're going to talk about this because this is really important and really fun. So when we see free agents, we're seeing the youngest free agents we see are maybe 26. Usually the youngest are, like Pablo Sandoval was a young free agent. He was 28. Mike Trout is what, 23? Is it even 23?
He turns 24 in 5 days, I think.
Okay, so Mike Trout is 24. Mike Trout is not. There's no reason to expect him to decline at all from being like the best player in baseball and the best player of along several decades. There's no reason except for Barry Bonds.
To do it in one sentence, Mike Trout would get 10 years, $500 million.
Yeah.
From 10 teams.
Because the whole scale was thrown off. One is he's way better than every free agent. 2 is that when you're buying a free agent, you're buying Albert Pujols. Albert Pujols was extremely good, but you were paying for Albert Pujols' age 30 through 40 seasons. You'd be paying at a 10-year contract.
32 through 42.
Yeah. You'd be paying for Mike Trout. I think Mike Trout, the biggest reason Mike Trout got a lot of money is Mike Trout would get 15 years. Because if you're going to give Robinson Cano 10 years when he's 30 already, Robinson Cano was maybe at his 60% of the player Mike Trout is when he was his best years. Mike Trout right now today would get locked up for 15 years, I would bet. And then 15 years of Mike Trout it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money.
Chris Sale is projected to be 6 WAR-ish for the next 3 years. And Garrett Cole is more like 4.5. I'm just looking at the Fangraphs article.
Yeah.
Okay.
And those are the two top pitchers. Sonny Gray, 4.5, actually higher than Cole. Bumgarner, same. So out of this group, with relatively low contracts, Sale does look like the best pitcher. He's only getting paid $12 million, $15 million.
Is that the trade value?
Trade value article, yeah.
What does he rank on there? He's like 5 or something. Right?
Six.
He's 6th.
Ahead of him is Correa, Bryant, Goldschmidt, Harper, and Trout. And I agree with that. I mean, we all agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, the reason that if Chris Sale, if you knew that Chris Sale's arm wasn't going to fall off, he would be, probably 4 on that list because Goldschmidt is also very good. But the problem is it's really hard to rank a pitcher in the same league as the best hitters.
Yeah.
Because there's just, especially Chris Sale is known as being injury risk. He hasn't really been hurt very much as a pitcher, but any pitcher has injury risk, and Chris Sale has kind of a funky delivery. So there's reason that you think he might get hurt.
Has he ever had an injury to his arm?
Yeah, he had one, but it wasn't serious.
He had a small thing last year, I think.
Yeah, he missed his first 5 starts last year.
Was it an arm issue?
I think it was. I think it was shoulder tightness or something.
It didn't seem to affect him too much because he put up like a 1-something ERA, 2.17 ERA last year.
I missed the pitcher. Chris Archer was number 10.
Yeah.
Cole was number 13. So these are
Chris Archer is not as good as Chris Sale.
No, I agree.
But the reason that Chris Archer is really not that far behind is Chris Archer's contract is even more team friendly than Chris Sale's. The Rays have control of Chris Archer they have him for like 6 years.
They have him for 6 years, and if they use all 6 years, it's like $33 million. It's absolutely insane how good his contract is. Yeah, he's getting paid nothing. Yeah. I mean, by Major League standards.
Yep.
I'll take that deal if somebody wants to offer it to me,
but
nothing.
Trade value, it's still Mike Trout. He's getting paid 2018, he gets $33 million a year.
And it's funny that that's incredibly underpaid.
If Mike Trout took a 1-year contract, it's hard to say because, at that point he's out of every team's budget practically. But the value in terms of a straight, what is the value of, based on what the market price for wins is, what is the value of Mike Trout? $70, $80 million is not in the question for just 1 year. So when you talk about, he's going to be paying $33, he's going to be the best player in baseball. Yeah, that's true, but he could be worth. It's crazy to think Mike Trout is so good that he could be worth double the salary as the best player in baseball.
Yeah.
Well,
Mike Trout's really good, and we should.
We're lucky. We're lucky to watch Mike Trout.
Yes. Fangraph dollars have him at 50 this year
already.
And those dollars are
on July 29th.
Oh,
are they prorated for the whole season? I don't know if they're prorated.
No, he's going to be at like 75 by the end of the year.
His best.
Yeah, I mean the dollars per WAR value right now is something around 7 or 8 million, and he's going to put about 10 wins by WAR.
His rookie year, he must have put up like $68 to $70 million.
He had 10 WAR his first 2 years. Last year was 8 WAR.
What a scrub! He only won the MVP.
All right. Well, I think we should wrap it up now.
Any other big questions here we should jump on?
If you've got to go, Eric, you can.
Yeah, I've got to get going.
And then I can pick on the question
Eric,
too, maybe.
Thank you for everything.
Yep.
We'll try and do another one of these.
All right. Have fun, guys.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else you want to cover? I think we covered the big ones. I'm checking the discussion forum.
Someone asks about Reyes and prospects for Tulo Hawkins. We talked
a little bit about that.
Yep, we did.
Someone asked about runs saved by individual pitch using pitch effects. This is actually something you can kind of see already. There actually is a metric for this. It's on Fangraphs. It's called pitch values or pitch run values. You go to any pitcher's player page, you scroll down, you'll see pitch effects run values, pitch effects values. So what those are is they'll basically take every pitch and take the outcome of it. So it can either be a ball, it can be a strike, I don't know if they differentiate by fouls or what, or just it could be a single, it could be a double, it can be one of those. So then they just take all those and they go above or below average. What's the average? I'm guessing for this pitch type. So what's the average slider? How many runs do those things create? So you have a home run that has a certain run value based on linear weights, and you give up a home run on your fastball, then you're going to lose 1.7 runs or whatever it is. So that's a way to measure it. I would say the problem is that you can't just take those and say, well, Clayton Kershaw's curveball, I'm guessing, is probably the best pitch in the majors off the top of my head. That might not be true, but it's got to be up there. You can't just look at it and say, well, that's the single best pitch. Because the problem is that pitching is really hard to measure because how good one pitch is, how good results it gets, really depends on all your other pitches. And everyone knows this. If a guy just comes up there, he has a 100-mile-an-hour fastball, and even if he can command it really well and put it right where he wants to, if you only have one pitch and you're a starting pitcher, even if it's a really great pitch, you're not going to get very far. And it's not going to necessarily get you great results. Maybe if you had a 100-mile-an-hour fastball, you could be an average starter. But if you have a 100-mile-an-hour fastball and then you throw in Felix Hernandez's changeup or whatever, that's going to make that fastball look a lot better because now your hitters can't just expect the fastball and sit on the fastball. So when you're looking at these pitch run values, they're really cool. They're really useful. They're really fun to look at. You just have to take into account, a pitcher's arsenal as a whole when you're looking at these things.
And I think that question also talked about pitching runs. How do you put a run value on a pitcher?
Yep.
And that's module 4.
We started that. We're working on that right now.
Module 4 is the introduction to pitching, and we cover the introduction to thinking about the pitcher's value. When we go to 201 and we look at pitch FX, that's when we're going to be able to do more work like Ethan was just talking about on Fangraphs. The ability to look at a certain pitch type and put value on it. But bottom line, every ball and strike has value. I know it sounds strange, like, oh, every ball in a pitch sequence improves the game state or decreases the value of the game state. Well, it actually does. And you can start putting values on these things. And so then you can start even, thinking about a pitcher's ability in these areas and maybe use pitch FX to measure these abilities as opposed to just walk rate. Walk rate's a great metric. It's used in all these pitching analytics, even the the basics of it that you want to look at walk rate. But there's other talents and skills here that people are getting at with pitch FX databases. So pitch values, good stuff. Good stuff.
People are mad I'm seeing questions. People are mad about 500 million.
Sorry?
Right. We'll see. If Mike Trout I don't know when he's going to be a free agent. He's going to be a free agent when he's 28. I don't know if he'll get 15 years when he's 28, but even when he's 28, Mike Trout could sign a $400 million contract. We'll see. We'll see if I'm proved right.
No, he's got a 10-year. Does he?
He had like a 7-year contract, but he was like 22. I think he reaches free agency before he's 30.
His last year is 2020. His contract, and he'll be how old? I don't know his age.
I'm looking up his birthday.
Baseball Reference will have his age, but
he will be 29.
29 after that.
Yep. I will bet that Mike Trout. I mean, okay. One thing is that Mike Trout might not be this good, but he's 29. We'll have a lot more information then. But if he's still this good when he's 29, or very close to it, he will get the biggest contract probably ever. Although, actually, Bryce Harper is going to be more interesting because Bryce Harper is going to be a 5-year-old free agent, 24, maybe 20. No, not 24. He's already got to be close to that. Maybe 25 or 26. So he'll be a very young free agent, and he's very good. He hits the ball very far. He has all the right skills to get paid, and he's going to be young. He might get a 12 to 15 year contract. I think
He's signed through 2016.
Yeah, and at which point he'll be what? He'll be like 18.
And he gets
Bryce
$5
Harper
million
is
a year. He's
yeah.
arbitration eligible. Earliest free agent for him is 2019. For Harper, he'll be arbitration eligible in
How old would he be then?
2017. In 2019, he would be 26. 26-year-old free agent.
He's going to get a lot of money.
Yeah. That's true. I wonder if the Nationals, I'm sure the Nationals think about this more than you tonight, but, you know, giving him the kick-ass contract. I mean, you know, the long-term deal through arbitration and a couple of years after to keep him around. I'm sure they bring that up every staff meeting.
I think Bryce Harper is pretty set on becoming the richest man in baseball. I think he's going to do it, and he's pretty excited for that.
Gotta love Bryce Harper. Gotta love Mike Trout. It's just fun watching baseball. It's
a lot of young players. This is a great time to be a baseball fan.
I agree.
There's so many young baseball stars and
Mookie Betts.
Yeah, Mookie Betts is great. Mookie Betts is 11 on that trade value series. Mookie Betts is fun to watch, and there's 10 guys who are more fun to watch than him. It is at least there's Carlos Correa, and these guys are going to be good for a long time.
I agree. So
that's a good note to end on.
We'll try to summarize the questions we didn't get to, both on the web, on the Google Hangouts, and also in the discussion forums. We'll talk internally for our next office hours, but you can expect it to probably be next week again.
If you have a question that we didn't get to, just go ahead and post on the discussion forum. We might not get back to you. We'll do our best. We get back to most posts. But
that's right.
You guys can talk about it. We would love to have some more discussion going on in the discussion forums about not just about the course, but about if you don't think Mike Trout's going to get $500 million, if you want to tell me I'm an idiot, go ahead. You guys can talk about it. I think that would be a great thread for the discussion forum.
One thing I know for sure, I may disagree with you, Ethan, and we probably will disagree through our time together on the planet, but you are not an idiot. No way that's true. We can disagree, though. Anyway, great hangout. I enjoyed answering your questions. Ethan, you want to sign off?
Yeah, so we'll do this again soon, hopefully next week.
All right.
All right, bye, guys.